Your presence makes sharing these stories worthwhile. Tell us, where are you tuning in from today? Big city? Small town? Share with us in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. The Meal Ticket. Chapter 1. The Question. Dad, why does Mom call you her meal ticket when you're not around? Doug Mercer froze, his hand suspended mid-air above the model battleship he and his 10-year-old son, Noah, were building. The innocuous question landed like a sledgehammer to his chest. What did you say, buddy? Doug struggled to keep his voice even. Noah shrugged, focusing on gluing a tiny radar dish. I heard Mom talking to Uncle Leo on the phone. She laughed and said something like, the meal ticket's working late again, so we have time. What's a meal ticket? Doug's throat constricted. Leo wasn't Noah's uncle. He was Doug's business partner at Meridian Construction, the company they'd built from nothing over 15 years. It's just a silly expression, Doug managed, his mind racing. Sometimes grown-ups use weird nicknames for each other. Oh, Noah seemed satisfied, attention returning to their project. But Doug couldn't focus. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Vanessa, his wife of 12 years, had always been supportive, hadn't she? He recalled the early days when he'd worked 18-hour shifts to get Meridian off the ground. Vanessa had been there, bringing him coffee, massaging his shoulders when he finally crawled into bed at 2 a.m. When had that changed? Later that night, after tucking Noah in, Doug paced their sprawling Tudor home, the dream house he'd designed himself. Through the kitchen window, he watched Vanessa lounging by the pool, wine glass in hand, laughing into her phone. The diamonds on her wrist caught the landscape lighting, glittering like tiny stars. Diamonds he'd bought to celebrate Meridian's biggest contract last year. Meal ticket. The phrase poisoned everything. 15 years of marriage collapsed into two ugly words. At dinner, Vanessa had mentioned visiting her mother in Phoenix next weekend. Girls' trip, she'd said casually. Just 3 days. She'd been taking more girls' trips lately. Doug had never questioned them. Now, everything felt suspect. When Vanessa finally came inside, she smelled of expensive perfume and wine. She kissed his cheek absent-mindedly. Noah asleep? She asked, kicking off her Louboutins, another gift he'd given her. Yeah. Doug studied her as she moved around the kitchen, noting how she seemed to glow. Had she always been this animated after her phone calls with her sister? He couldn't remember. How was your day? She asked, not looking at him as she poured more wine. Illuminating, Doug replied. Vanessa glanced up, a flicker of something. Concern? Guilt? Crossing her face before she smiled. That's nice, honey. That night, Doug lay awake, listening to Vanessa's steady breathing beside him. The woman he'd built his life around. The mother of his child. The center of everything. Meal ticket. At 3 a.m., when he was certain she was deeply asleep, Doug carefully slid out of bed and padded to Vanessa's home office. Her phone lay charging on the desk. He hesitated. He'd never invaded her privacy before. But now, his thumb hovered over the fingerprint scanner. Years ago, when Vanessa had gotten a new phone, they'd programmed each other's prints in case of emergency. Had she forgotten? Or did she have nothing to hide? The phone unlocked. Doug's heart hammered as he opened her messages. There at the top, Leo Walsh. He tapped the thread and immediately wished he hadn't. Can't wait for Phoenix next weekend. Doug still clueless? Vanessa's reply. The meal ticket's too busy building his empire to notice anything. 3 whole days, Leo. No sneaking around. Doug scrolled up, each message worse than the last. Photos that made his stomach clench. Plans made while he worked late. Jokes at his expense. The affair had been going on for 8 months. 8 months. Doug closed the phone, replaced it exactly as he'd found it, and returned to bed. He lay beside his wife, this stranger, and stared at the ceiling until dawn, his mind cycling through 15 years of memories, now tainted by suspicion. What had been real? What had been pretense? And Leo, his oldest friend, his business partner, the man who'd been best man at his wedding, the godfather to Noah. Doug turned to look at Vanessa's sleeping form. So peaceful, so beautiful. You have no idea what's coming, he thought, a cold certainty settling in his chest. Neither of you does, because Doug Mercer was many things, successful, driven, generous to a fault, but above all, patient. He would not act rashly. He would not show his hand. No, Doug decided as the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains. This required something special, something neither of them would see coming, something they would never forget. Chapter 2, The Discovery. For 3 weeks, Doug maintained a flawless performance. He kissed Vanessa goodbye when she left for Phoenix, wished her a wonderful time with her mother. He attended business meetings with Leo, laughing at his jokes, discussing Meridian's future expansion plans. No one, not Leo, not Vanessa, suspected the volcano churning beneath his calm exterior. During those weeks, Doug gathered evidence methodically. He hired Constance Rivera, a private investigator recommended by his attorney, Walter Green. A formidable woman with 20 years of experience and uncompromising discretion, Constance provided Doug with everything: hotel receipts, photographs, audio recordings from the Phoenix trip that actually took place at a boutique hotel in Santa Barbara. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mercer," Constance said when she delivered the final report. The compassion in her eyes only intensified his humiliation. "Don't be," Doug replied, writing her check. "You've been invaluable." With Constance's evidence secure, Doug took his investigation deeper. He gained access to Leo's financials through Meridian's accounting system, technically legal, as both were signatories on the company accounts. What he discovered was illuminating. Leo had been bleeding money for months. Expensive gifts for Vanessa, hotels, a secret apartment in the city. More disturbingly, Leo had leveraged his partnership stake in Meridian for a private loan that was now coming due. The business partner Doug trusted implicitly was not only sleeping with his wife, but was on the brink of financial disaster. One evening, while reviewing these findings in his home office, Doug was interrupted by a soft knock. Noah stood in the doorway, pajama-clad and hesitant. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Doug closed his laptop. "Always, buddy. What's up?" Noah shuffled forward. "Are you and Mom getting a divorce?" The question struck like lightning. Doug pulled his son close. "What makes you ask that?" "Tommy's parents got divorced last year. Before it happened, they stopped talking to each other. They acted weird. Like you and Mom now." Doug's heart ached. Children perceived more than adults credited them for. He'd been so focused on his investigation that he hadn't considered how the changing atmosphere might affect Noah. "Your mom and I are going through some grown-up stuff," Doug said carefully. "But whatever happens, I will always be your dad, and I will always be here for you. That's a promise." Noah studied him with eyes too old for his face. "Is it because of Uncle Leo?" Doug stiffened. "What about Uncle Leo? Mom's always texting him. And last week, when you were at work, he came to the house. They didn't know I was home early for basketball. They were arguing in the kitchen. Do you remember what about?" Noah frowned. "Uncle Leo said something like, 'We can't keep going like this. He's going to find out.' And Mom said, 'He doesn't suspect anything. He never has.'" Doug maintained his composure despite the fury igniting within him. They brought their betrayal into his home, where his son could witness it. "Thank you for telling me, Noah. This is very grown-up stuff, and I'm proud of you for being so honest. But now, I need you to trust me to handle it, okay?" After Noah went to bed, Doug sat alone in his darkened office. The pieces of his shattered life spread before him. The betrayal, the lies, the arrogance in their assumption that he would never discover the truth. He opened his desk drawer and removed the burner phone he'd purchased days earlier. He texted the number Constance had provided. "I'm ready to move forward." The reply came swiftly, understood. "Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m., usual spot." Doug leaned back, staring at the family photo on his desk. Noah's gap-toothed smile, Vanessa's perfect posture, his own proud stance behind them. The perfect family. The perfect lie. His phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa, working late with Pamela on the charity gala. "Don't wait up. Love you." Doug checked Vanessa's location on their shared family app. The blue dot pulsed at Leo's secret apartment downtown. He texted back, "No problem. Sleep well." For weeks, he had said nothing, shown nothing. But tomorrow, things would change. Tomorrow, the first domino would fall. Chapter 3, The Architect. Before Meridian Construction made Doug Mercer a wealthy man. Before he became someone a woman might view as a meal ticket, he had been a scrappy kid from Riverside with calloused hands and unwavering determination. The youngest of 5 in a blue-collar family, Doug had watched his father work double shifts at the steel mill, coming home with burns on his forearms and a hacking cough that eventually took his life. His mother cleaned houses until arthritis gnarled her fingers. From them, Doug learned that the world rewarded those who outworked everyone else. When his high school guidance counselor suggested vocational school, Doug instead secured 3 scholarships and worked nights to put himself through architecture school at UCLA. There, he met Leo Walsh, charismatic, connected from old money that had mostly disappeared, who recognized Doug's raw talent and ambition. "You design him, I'll sell him," Leo had proclaimed during a late-night study session their junior year. "We'll be millionaires by 30. They were millionaires by 29. Doug met Vanessa Hargrove at 27, when Meridian was still operating out of a converted warehouse. She'd been breathtaking, a former model turned interior designer, with honey blonde hair and a laugh that made everyone turn to find its source. Doug couldn't believe his luck when she agreed to dinner. "What made you say yes?" he asked on their third date. Vanessa's smile had been enigmatic. "You have hungry eyes, like a man who knows exactly what he wants and won't stop until he gets it." They married 11 months later. Noah arrived a year after that. Now, sitting across from Walter Green in the attorney's private conference room, Doug recalled those early days with painful clarity. "The evidence is substantial," Walter said, organizing folders on the gleaming mahogany table. A silver-haired titan of divorce law, Walter had represented 3 of Doug's acquaintances in their divorces. All had walked away satisfied. California's no-fault divorce laws notwithstanding, the evidence of marital misconduct will be persuasive during settlement negotiations. Doug nodded absently, his focus elsewhere. And the business angle? Walter's expression turned grim. "That's more complex. Your partnership agreement with Leo gives you both equal control, but the morality clause you included can be triggered by evidence of actions damaging to the company's reputation," Doug finished. "Like sleeping with the co-founder's wife and misappropriating company resources." "Exactly, but executing that clause requires board approval. The board that consists of me, Leo, and our 3 investors." Doug drummed his fingers on the table. "2 of whom owe their fortunes to deals I brought in." Walter studied him. "Doug, speaking as your friend, not just your attorney, are you sure about this direction? Divorce is one thing. What you're describing is scorched earth." Doug met his gaze unflinchingly. "They brought this war to my doorstep, to my son's doorstep." Walter sighed. "Then let's continue." For the next 2 hours, they refined what Walter termed the extraction plan. It would begin with subtle moves, changes to company authorization protocols, strategic conversations with key investors, discreet relocation of assets. Nothing that would trigger alarm bells. Yet, what about Noah? Walter asked, closing his notepad. "My parents' old house in Lake Arrowhead is being prepared. My mother will take him there when things get volatile. He loves it up there." Walter nodded. "And Rebecca? Will she be involved?" Doug hesitated at the mention of Vanessa's younger sister. The 2 women had a complicated relationship, competitive, often contentious. Rebecca had warned Doug before the wedding, cryptically saying, "Vanessa always wants what sparkles brightest. Just make sure you keep shining. Rebecca will play her part," Doug said finally, "whether she knows it or not." As he gathered his documents, Doug's phone pinged with a text from Vanessa. "Miss you. Can't wait to see you tonight. Hugs and kisses." Attached was a selfie. Vanessa in his Harvard t-shirt, the one she knew he loved seeing her in, her smile intimate and inviting. Another ping. "Leo sending a deck for tomorrow's client presentation. Knock this out of the park, brother. Gersten's going to sign for sure." Doug texted identically worded appreciative responses to both. Outside, as California sunshine bathed the world in golden light, Doug sat in his Range Rover, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The man looking back at him was still recognizable. Same deep-set hazel eyes, same strong jaw, now covered with 3 days of stubble. But something had changed. The light behind his eyes had hardened into something cold and resolute. "The meal ticket is officially closed," he murmured to his reflection, then started the engine and pulled into traffic, the first pieces of his plan already falling into place. Chapter 4. The First Move. The Gersten contract signing should have been a moment of triumph. Worth $50 million, it represented Meridian's expansion into sustainable commercial developments, Doug's passion project for 3 years. Instead, as champagne corks popped and executives exchanged congratulatory handshakes, Doug felt nothing but cold calculation as he watched Leo work the room. Leo Walsh had always been the face of Meridian. Charming, polished, the consummate salesman who could convince skeptics and close impossible deals. Today, he was resplendent in a tailored Brioni suit, moving through the crowd with effortless charisma, occasionally glancing at Doug with fraternal pride. "You have no idea," Doug thought, raising his champagne flute when Leo toasted him from across the room. The plan began that night at the celebratory dinner hosted at the Pinnacle, downtown's most exclusive restaurant. Doug had arranged for Vanessa to attend, a deviation from their normal protocol for business events. "To what do we owe this pleasure?" Leo asked when Vanessa arrived, looking stunning in a crimson dress that clung to her curves. His voice was steady, his expression appropriate for greeting his business partner's wife. But Doug caught the momentary flicker in Leo's eyes, alarm masked by practiced charm. "The Gersten deal was Doug's baby," Vanessa replied smoothly, kissing Leo's cheek with practiced casualness. "I wouldn't miss celebrating his success." Throughout dinner, Doug observed their performance, the careful distance maintained, the brief glances when they thought he wasn't looking, the practiced ease of two people who believed their deception was masterful. He also noted how Valerie Gersten, the elegant CEO whose signature had just made them millions, seemed captivated by Leo's attention. "Mrs. Gersten seems quite taken with Leo," Doug mentioned casually as they drove home. Vanessa's knuckles whitened slightly on her clutch. "He's always had that effect on women." Doug kept his tone light. "Strange he never settled down." "Some men aren't built for monogamy," Vanessa replied, then quickly added, "Unlike you, of course." "Of course." Doug turned on the radio, signaling an end to the conversation while noting how easily the subject of fidelity made her defensive. The following morning, Doug executed the next phase. He called an emergency meeting with Maurice Palmer, Meridian's CFO, a brilliant, meticulous man who had been with them almost from the beginning. "I need a comprehensive audit of all expenditures for the past year," Doug explained in Morris's minimalist office. "Client by client, project by project, executive by executive." Morris's eyebrows rose. "That's extensive. Any particular reason?" "The Gersten contract puts us in a new league. Before we scale further, I want complete transparency on our financial health." Maurice nodded slowly. "I'll need to pull in the accounting team. This could take weeks." "You have 5 days," Doug said pleasantly. "And Maurice?" "Complete confidentiality. No exceptions." Meanwhile, Doug initiated what he privately termed Operation Proximity. He began keeping Vanessa close. He shortened his work hours, suggested spontaneous date nights, planned weekend activities. To the outside world, he appeared to be a devoted husband recommitting to his marriage. To Vanessa, it was clearly maddening. "Don't you have that Seattle project to oversee?" she asked one afternoon when Doug suggested an impromptu spa weekend. "Leo's handling it," Doug replied. "I realized I've been neglecting what matters most." He watched the conflict play across her face, the frustrated mistress warring with the role of appreciative wife she needed to maintain. As predicted, by day 10, Leo made his first mistake. "We need to talk," Leo said, closing Doug's office door during a rare moment Vanessa had legitimate obligations elsewhere. His normally confident demeanor was frayed. "The Seattle deal. There's a problem with the municipal approval. I need you there." Doug leaned back, expression concerned. "How serious?" "Potentially deal-breaking. 3 days, max." Leo's eyes held a plea that had nothing to do with business. "You can't handle it." "I've tried. They specifically want the architect." Doug sighed dramatically. "Let me check with Vanessa. We had plans, but if it's crucial..." Relief flooded Leo's face. It is absolutely crucial. That evening, Doug informed Vanessa he'd be leaving for Seattle the following morning. Her performance of disappointment was Oscar-worthy, though he caught the lightning-quick check of her phone, undoubtedly texting Leo the good news. Such bad timing, she sighed. Maybe I'll have Rebecca over to keep me company. Doug kissed her forehead. Excellent idea. You two should spend more time together. The next morning, Doug departed for the airport with his luggage. He kissed Vanessa goodbye, promised to call that night, and drove away. Then he circled back to the private airstrip where Constance waited in an unmarked surveillance van. They've already made contact, she reported, showing him her monitoring equipment. Walsh texted her 8 minutes after you left. Is he gone? Doug settled into the passenger seat, accepting the headphones Constance offered. Now they would wait, and listen, and document. Mr. Mercer, Constance said, her expression professional but concerned. Are you sure about this? Surveillance is one thing, but what comes next? Doug's smile didn't reach his eyes. What comes next, Ms. Rivera, is justice. Swift, poetic, and absolutely merciless. Chapter 5, Count a Moose. The surveillance van's interior was cramped and sterile, a technological cocoon of monitors, receivers, and recording equipment. Doug sat motionless, headphones pressed to his ears, as Constance adjusted the gain on their directional microphones. Through the equipment, he could hear Vanessa moving around their bedroom, humming as she prepared for Leo's arrival. How do you manage this professionally? Doug asked Constance during a lull. Witnessing people's worst moments day after day. Constance's weathered face remained impassive. I focus on the clients who deserve the truth. Like you. Her words hung in the air as Leo's Porsche pulled into the driveway. Doug tensed, watching on the monitor as his business partner strode confidently to the front door, the same door Doug had designed, incorporating elements that reminded him of his father's craftsmanship. We're recording, Constance confirmed quietly. For the next hour, Doug endured the most profound violation of his marriage, his home, his life. The cameras and microphones captured everything. Leo and Vanessa's passionate reunion, their conversation about Doug's obliviousness, their plans for the future. When will you leave him? Leo asked, sprawled across Doug's bed. Vanessa's laugh was brittle. Not until we're ready. He's still useful. The company's worth 9 figures now, thanks to Gersten. Your prenup has that 10-year clause. You've been married, 12 years? 12 years, for months and 6 days, Vanessa confirmed. But it's not just about money, Leo. Doug has connections. Status. Walking away means losing all that. Leo pulled her closer. We could have that together. Maybe, Vanessa murmured. But there's no rush. Doug's never suspected a thing. He's too trusting, too blinded by his precious success. In the van, Doug removed his headphones, his expression glacial. I've seen enough. Constance nodded, continuing the recording while Doug stepped outside, gulping fresh air. His phone buzzed, a text from Noah's basketball coach confirming tomorrow's practice. The normalcy of it felt surreal against what he just witnessed. Another text arrived, Rebecca Hargrove, Vanessa's sister. Are we still on for coffee tomorrow? Have some thoughts about Noah's birthday. Doug stared at the message. Rebecca, the missing piece. He texted back, definitely. 10 a.m., Whitfields? Rebecca responded immediately. Perfect. Returning to the van, Doug found Constance reviewing the footage. They've moved to the kitchen, she reported, discussing whether to order dinner or she broke off, listening intently through her headphones. Mr. Mercer, you need to hear this. Doug reluctantly replaced his headphones. Leo's voice was serious. Getting suspicious. Palmer's conducting some kind of audit. Asked for all my expense reports, travel records, everything. Doug ordered an audit? Vanessa sounded alarmed. Not officially. Palmer says it's standard procedure with the company's growth, but the timing. I don't like it. Could he know about us? Impossible. We've been careful. But the Seacliff property, if he traces those payments. The property I don't know about. Vanessa's voice had cooled considerably. Silence followed, then Leo's cautious response. It was going to be a surprise. Oceanfront. 6 bedrooms. In your name only? Vanessa pressed. For now. For discretion, Doug removed the headphones again, a bitter smile playing at his lips. So Leo has secrets even from his accomplice. Classic narcissist move, Constance commented. Compartmentalizing relationships, managing information flow. Can you get details on this Seacliff property? Constance was already typing on her laptop. County records are public. If it exists, I'll find it. Doug nodded, watching the monitor as Leo and Vanessa moved from tension back to intimacy. The prospect of a secret oceanfront property apparently smoothing over Vanessa's momentary suspicion. They're comfortable, Doug observed. Confident. Most affairs follow predictable patterns, Constance replied without looking up from her screen. They believe they've established a secure routine. That makes them vulnerable to exposure, to miscalculation. Constance turned her laptop toward him. Seacliff property found. Purchased 4 months ago by an LLC registered to Leo Walsh. Purchase price, $4.8 million. Doug examined the listing photographs. A modernist glass and steel structure perched on California's most exclusive coastline. The kind of statement property that screamed new money. That's not a love nest, Doug said quietly. That's an exit strategy. The next morning, Doug met Rebecca at Whitfield's, an artisanal coffee shop in the Arts District. Unlike her sister's polished glamour, Rebecca possessed a natural beauty. Minimal makeup, curly hair she didn't fight to straighten, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. You look like hell, she said by way of greeting, sliding into the booth opposite him. Late night, Doug replied, pushing a cappuccino toward her. Business. Rebecca studied him over the rim of her cup. Business. Right. She set down her coffee. Let's skip the small talk. You didn't invite me here to discuss Noah's birthday. Doug had always appreciated Rebecca's directness. No, he admitted. I didn't. It's Vanessa, isn't it? You finally figured it out. The question blindsided him. You knew. Rebecca's laugh held no humor. About Leo? Everyone knows, Doug. Except you. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. I tried to warn you. Years ago. You didn't want to hear it. Doug withdrew his hand. Why didn't you tell me directly? Would you have believed me? The jealous little sister. Rebecca shook her head. Besides, Vanessa's my sister. Despite everything, that means something. And now, Rebecca's expression hardened. Now I'm thinking about my nephew. About what happens to him when this all explodes. Which it will. Doug leaned forward. I need to ask you something important. And I need complete honesty. Always. Would you help me? Rebecca didn't hesitate. What do you need? As Doug outlined the first stage of his plan, Rebecca listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. That's methodical, she finally said. Calculated. Is that a yes? Rebecca twirled a curl around her finger, a nervous habit from childhood. Vanessa will never forgive me. I'm not asking you to choose between us, Doug said quietly. I'm asking you to choose justice. For Noah. For the family she's destroying. Rebecca's eyes, so like Vanessa's yet fundamentally different, met his. I'm in. They spent the next hour refining details. As they prepared to leave, Rebecca grasped his arm. Doug, when this is over, what happens to Noah? To you. Doug thought of his son, of the future he'd imagined for their family. We rebuild. We heal. We move forward. Without Vanessa, Rebecca clarified. Without Vanessa, Doug confirmed. And without Leo, Rebecca nodded, a complex emotion crossing her face. Good. As they parted outside the cafe, Rebecca surprised him with a fierce hug. Be careful, she whispered. Vanessa's not the harmless socialite she pretends to be. When cornered, she's dangerous. Doug drove back to the surveillance location, Rebecca's warning echoing in his mind. He'd always seen Vanessa as superficial, perhaps selfish, but essentially harmless. What if he'd underestimated her, just as he'd underestimated Leo's financial machinations? As he approached the van, Constance emerged, her expression grim. They're gone, she reported. But before leaving, Walsh made a call. I traced it to Maurice Palmer. Doug felt ice form in his veins. Maurice? You're certain? Constance nodded. The conversation was brief, but Walsh seemed agitated afterward. He and Mrs. Mercer left approximately 20 minutes later. Doug checked his watch. The board meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m., the meeting where he planned to present the preliminary findings from Morris's audit. "We need to move up the timeline," he told Constance. Now, Chapter 6, Betrayal's Depth. Maurice Palmer's corner office at Meridian headquarters offered a panoramic view of the city skyline, a testament to his importance in the company's hierarchy. When Doug entered unannounced, Maurice was hunched over his computer, phone pressed to his ear. Seeing Doug, his complexion paled to the color of the financial statements spread across his desk. "I'll call you back," he said quickly, ending the call. "Doug, wasn't expecting you until the board meeting." Doug closed the door quietly behind him. "Who was that, Maurice?" "Nobody important. Just checking some figures for the presentation." Maurice shuffled papers nervously. "The audit isn't complete yet. We've had some, challenges with the Seattle documentation." "Is that what Leo told you to say?" Doug kept his voice measured, observing how Morris's eyes darted to the door, calculating escape routes. "I don't know what you mean." Doug sat down across from him. 15 years, Maurice. You've been with us almost from the beginning. Your children's college funds? I personally guaranteed them when we couldn't make payroll that first year." Morris's professional facade crumbled. "Doug, please. It's complicated. Simplify it for me." Maurice slumped in his chair. "Leo came to me 6 months ago, said he needed some transactions kept off the main ledgers, company expenses that were personal in nature, and you agreed. He's a founding partner. He said it was temporary tax strategy." Morris's hands trembled. By the time I realized the extent. "How much?" Doug asked simply. Maurice stared at his desk. "At least $7.3 million. Possibly more." The figure was staggering, not just for the amount, but for the depth of betrayal it represented. Leo hadn't just been siphoning funds for an affair. He'd been systematically looting the company. The Seacliff property, Maurice nodded miserably, plus 3 other real estate investments. A yacht docked in Marina del Rey. Wire transfers to a Cayman account. All from Meridian funds. Not directly. He created shell vendors, fake invoices. The money moved through several accounts before reaching its destination. Doug absorbed this information with eerie calm. "And when I requested the audit," he said to Stahl, "that he'd handle you." Maurice finally met Doug's gaze. "Doug, I have a family." Leo implied, if this came alight, he threatened you. Maurice didn't respond, which was answer enough. Doug stood. "The board meeting is postponed. You'll receive instructions this afternoon. Until then, continue as normal." As he turned to leave, Maurice called after him. "What about Leo? When he discovers I've told you?" Doug paused at the door. "Leo has more pressing concerns than you, Maurice. But make no mistake, your cooperation now doesn't erase your complicity." Outside in the corridor, Doug texted Walter. Situation escalated. "Initiate protocol B immediately." Walter's response was swift, in motion. Financial lockdown underway. Court filings prepared. Next, Doug contacted Constance. Track Leo. Priority surveillance. Then, steeling himself, he called Rebecca. "It's happening now. Are you ready?" "Vanessa just texted me," Rebecca replied, her voice tight with tension. "She's invited me to lunch. Says she has exciting news." "Perfect. Proceed as planned." "And Rebecca, remember, Vanessa can't suspect you know anything. I've been keeping secrets from my sister since we shared a bedroom, Doug. I've got this." His final call was to his mother in Lake Arrowhead. "Mom, remember that vacation we discussed? I need you to pick up Noah from school today. The weather report mentioned, storms coming." Eleanor Mercer, shrewd and perceptive at 72, caught his meaning immediately. "I'll pack his favorite games. How long will these storms last?" "Uncertain, but I'll join you soon." With Noah's safety arranged, Doug drove to his final destination, the Modest Craftsman bungalow belonging to Theo Mercer, his older brother. Theo opened the door before Doug could knock, his firefighter's instincts attuned to approaching trouble. "You look like shit," he greeted, pulling Doug into a bear hug. Inside, the brothers sat on Theo's porch, beers in hand, overlooking the canyon. Unlike Doug's meticulously designed home, Theo's place was comfortably worn, filled with mementos from his 20 years with the county fire department. "So," Theo said after Doug explained the situation, "my little brother, the millionaire, needs my help beating the crap out of his cheating business partner?" "That's oversimplifying," Doug replied. Theo grinned, "but essentially accurate." He took a long pull of his beer. "When?" "Tonight. Leo has a waterfront property in Seacliff. Based on Constance's intel, that's where he's heading." "And you're sure about this?" "About all of it." Theo's expression turned serious. "Once we cross certain lines, there's no going back, Dougie." Doug stared at the horizon. "They crossed the lines first. They brought this into my home, endangered my company, exposed my son to their betrayal." Theo studied him. "This isn't just about revenge, is it? This is about protection. Noah's future. Everything I've built was for him." Doug's voice caught. "They were willing to destroy that for their own gratification." Theo nodded slowly. "Then let's go have a conversation with Leo Walsh." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Theo's canyon property, the brothers finalized their preparations. Doug received updates from various fronts. Walter confirming that emergency injunctions were in place, freezing certain assets. Constance reporting that Leo had indeed headed to Seacliff, alone. Rebecca sharing that Vanessa had been oddly ebullient at lunch, mentioning plans to start fresh soon. "She thinks she's won," Doug told Theo. "They both do." Theo checked the duffel bag containing certain items they might need. Nothing illegal. Theo had insisted on that, but definitely intimidating. "Remember," Theo cautioned, "we get the evidence, make the point, and leave. No permanent damage." Doug nodded absently, his phone buzzing with a text from Vanessa. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Red heart." Simultaneously, an email arrived from Leo. "Seattle situation under control. Taking tomorrow off. Need some personal time. You should too, brother. We've earned it." Doug showed Theo both messages. "Brazen," Theo commented. "They're not even trying to be subtle anymore. They don't think they need to be." Doug pocketed his phone. "Let's go educate them." As they climbed into Theo's nondescript truck, Doug felt a curious sense of clarity. For weeks, he had contained the maelstrom of his emotions, the rage, the humiliation, the heartbreak. Tonight, that containment would end. Tonight, Leo Walsh would learn exactly what it meant to betray Doug Mercer. And tomorrow, Vanessa would discover the same. Chapter 7. The Confrontation. The Seacliff property stood like a modernist fortress against the darkening sky, its glass walls illuminated from within, exposing Leo's silhouette as he moved between rooms. From their vantage point in Theo's truck, parked on a service road overlooking the isolated estate, Doug and Theo observed their target. "Nice place," Theo remarked. "Guess embezzlement pays well." Doug remained silent, mentally calculating angles of approach, potential exits, security measures. The architect in him couldn't help but admire the structure's bold lines, even as the betrayed friend plotted his infiltration. Constance confirmed no security system installed yet, Doug finally said. Leo's been cutting corners on the property's completion, prioritizing aesthetics over functionality. "Typical," Theo muttered, checking his watch. "It's nearly 9. You sure Vanessa's not joining him?" "Rebecca's with her. Girls' night at the Archer. Vanessa won't leave until at least 11. Theo nodded, reaching for the duffel bag at his feet. "Then let's make this visit count." They approached from the beach side, climbing the private staircase carved into the cliff face. Doug noted the poor lighting, the missing handrails, all violations of coastal building codes. More evidence of Leo's shortcuts. The seaward terrace doors were unlocked, another oversight. They entered silently, finding Leo in the sprawling living room, tumbler of scotch in hand, phone pressed to his ear. "Telling you, it's handled," Leo was saying, his back to them. Doug's clueless. "Always has been." "Yeah, ironic that his trust fund is paying for all this." Doug cleared his throat. Leo whirled, the phone slipping from his fingers, clattering on the polished concrete floor. His face, usually the picture of confidence, contorted in shock. "Doug? What? How did you?" His gaze shifted to Theo, then to the duffel bag. Understanding dawned. "Now hold on. Whatever you think. Finish your call. Leo, Doug said calmly. I'd hate to interrupt. Leo swallowed hard, retrieving his phone. I'll call you back, he muttered before ending the call. He forced a smile. Doug, buddy, this isn't what it looks like. Really? Doug advanced into the room, taking in the space, the expensive furniture, the original artwork, the panoramic ocean views. Because it looks like my business partner purchased a $4.8 million property using embezzled company funds. Leo's face paled. You can't prove. Maurice provided everything, Leo. Every false invoice. Every shell company. Every diverted payment. Maurice. Leo's expression hardened. That weasel. After everything I've done for him. For him. Doug's voice remained unervingly calm. Or to him. The threats? The coercion? Leo retreated behind a massive quartz island in the open kitchen. Doug, be reasonable. Yes, I leveraged some company resources. Temporarily. But Meridian's never been more profitable. The Gersten deal alone was my project Doug finished. My design. My vision. Which you're now claiming credit for while sleeping with my wife. The words hung between them. Leo's eyes darted to Theo, who had positioned himself by the terrace doors, effectively blocking the main escape route. Vanessa and I. Leo's voice faltered. It's complicated. Actually, it's remarkably simple. Doug circled the island, backing Leo against the built-in refrigerator. You betrayed me. Professionally. Personally. Completely. Leo raised his hands defensively. Listen, if this is about money. It's not about money. Doug's composure finally cracked, his voice rising. It's about loyalty. Honor. The promises we made. Promises? Leo laughed bitterly. Like you promised we'd be equal partners? While you became the celebrated genius architect, and I was just the salesman, your glorified employee, is that how you justify this? Doug gestured at the luxurious space around them. Stealing from me? Sleeping with my wife. Vanessa came to me. Leo shot back. Did you know that? Little Miss Perfect approached me. Said she was tired of being married to a workaholic who cared more about his buildings than her happiness. The revelation stung, but Doug had prepared himself for such tactics. And naturally, being my oldest friend, you declined her advances and told me immediately. Leo had the grace to look ashamed, if only briefly. It wasn't planned, Doug. It just happened. For 8 months? With my company's money paying for your rendezvous? Doug shook his head. No, Leo. This was calculated. Deliberate. Leo's demeanor suddenly shifted, desperation giving way to defiance. So what now? You rough me up with your fireman brother? Force me to sign over my stake in Meridian? That won't hold up in court. I don't need to force anything. Doug pulled out his phone, displaying a document. The board has already invoked the morality clause. Your partnership is terminated, effective immediately. What? They can't. They did. Unanimously. Even Prescott voted against you, and he's been your golf buddy for a decade. Leo lunged for the phone, but Theo intercepted him effortlessly, pinning him against the refrigerator with one muscled forearm. Easy there, hotshot, Theo warned. This is assault, Leo gasped. I'll have you both arrested. For what? Doug asked reasonably. We're unarmed. We entered through an unlocked door. We haven't touched you, well, until you attacked us just now. Leo's eyes narrowed. You won't get away with this. Vanessa and I, we've planned for contingencies. Such as, she knows things about you, Doug. Things that would destroy you professionally if they came to light. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Doug's face. What things? Leo sensed advantage. Release me from the morality clause. Restore my partnership. Give me the fair buyout. Then maybe, just maybe, certain information stays buried. Doug exchanged glances with Theo, who marginally relaxed his hold on Leo. What information, Leo? Doug pressed. Leo straightened his rumpled shirt. The Wellington Tower project. The structural modifications you made without proper permits. The inspections you circumvented. Doug paled visibly. The Wellington Tower had been one of Meridian's early successes, a commercial high-rise that had established their reputation. But the project had faced delays, budget constraints. That was 15 years ago, Doug said quietly. Statute of limitations doesn't apply to negligent endangerment, Leo countered. especially when lives could be at risk. One anonymous tip to the building department, and everything you've built crumbles, literally and figuratively. The silence that followed was deafening. Doug's mind raced through implications, calculating risks, assessing damage potential. You would risk people's safety for leverage? Theo asked incredulously. Leo shrugged. Business is business, and this is just negotiation. Doug stepped back, his expression unreadable. You've given this thought. I've given everything thought, Doug. That's the difference between us. You design beautiful buildings. I anticipate beautiful opportunities. Outside, waves crashed against the cliffs, the rhythmic sound at odds with the tension crackling in the room. I need to consider this, Doug finally said. Take all the time you need, Leo replied, confidence returning to his posture. But remember, the board meeting to formalize my termination is tomorrow at noon. I'd appreciate your decision before then. And Vanessa? Doug couldn't help asking. Is she part of this bargain? Leo hesitated, revealing the fracture in their alliance. Vanessa makes her own choices, but you've discussed contingencies. Of course, we're practical people. Doug nodded slowly. One last question, Leo. The son you've known since birth, the boy who calls you Uncle Leo, was he ever a consideration in your practicality? For the first time that night, genuine shame crossed Leo's face. Noah's a great kid, he said softly. He deserves better than all this. On that, we agree. Doug turned to Theo. We're done here. As they moved toward the terrace doors, Leo called after them. Don't forget, Doug. Noon tomorrow. Your reputation. Your legacy. Everything you've built. Doug paused, looking back at the man who had once been his closest friend. You know what's strange, Leo? I came here tonight ready to destroy you. To make you pay for every betrayal. And now you see reason, Leo supplied smugly. No. Doug's expression hardened. Now I pity you, living in this stolen house, sleeping with another man's wife, threatening the safety of innocent people for leverage. You've already destroyed yourself. I don't need to finish the job. With that, Doug and Theo disappeared into the night, leaving Leo clutching his scotch, his victory suddenly feeling hollow. In the truck, heading back to the city, Theo broke the tense silence. Wellington Tower? Is that real? Doug stared straight ahead, his profile sharp against the passing streetlights. Yes. And is it dangerous? Did you really cut corners? No. Doug turned to his brother. But Leo believes I did, because that's what I told him back then. To protect him. I don't understand. Leo approved modifications that would have compromised the structure. I discovered the error before implementation and quietly corrected it, but let him believe his original plan was executed. I covered for him, Theo, to preserve his confidence. Our partnership, Theo processed this. So his leverage is based on a lie I told to protect him from his own mistake. Doug's laugh held no humor. The irony is almost poetic. What will you do now? Doug checked his watch. Almost midnight. Now we proceed to phase 2. Are you still with me? Theo reached across the console, gripping his brother's shoulder. Always. As the city skyline loomed before them, Doug texted Rebecca. Leo met. Proceeding as planned. Is V home? Rebecca's reply came seconds later. Just dropped her off. Everything's set for tomorrow. Tomorrow, when Vanessa Mercer would discover exactly what it meant to underestimate the man she dismissed as merely her meal ticket. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. Morning arrived with unusual clarity, the Los Angeles smog temporarily banished by overnight Santa Ana winds. Doug stood at his bedroom window, watching Vanessa apply her makeup at her vanity. The routine was so familiar. The precise angle at which she held her mascara wand, the slight tilt of her head as she assessed her reflection. 12 years of marriage distilled into predictable patterns. Had she ever truly loved him? Or had he always been just a means to an end? Security, status, the meal ticket she'd mocked behind his back? You're staring, Vanessa commented, meeting his gaze in the mirror. Everything okay? Just appreciating the view, Doug replied, maintaining the charade for a few hours longer. Any plans today? Vanessa applied her signature red lipstick, blotting carefully. Lunch with Rebecca, then the committee meeting for the Children's Hospital fundraiser. She turned to face him, radiant in a designer dress that complemented her figure perfectly. What about you? Shouldn't you be rushing to the office? Board meeting at noon. Thought I'd work from home this morning. A flicker of alarm crossed Vanessa's face. Board meeting? I don't remember you mentioning that. Last minute. Something about the Gersten contract allocation. Oh, Vanessa relaxed visibly. Well, don't work too hard. Maybe we could do dinner tonight? Just the two of us. The suggestion, so normal, so wifely, struck Doug as surreal given what he now knew. I like that. After Vanessa departed, kissing him distractedly on her way out, Doug contacted Walter for a final status report. All in place, Walter confirmed. Financial injunctions secured. Corporate lockdown implemented. Maurice has provided complete documentation. The board members have been individually briefed. They're united behind you. And the other matter? Managed as requested. Timing is critical, though. If she accesses accounts before the meeting, she won't. Doug closed his eyes briefly. Rebecca will keep her occupied. Next, he called Constance. What's Leo's status? Arrived at Meridian headquarters 30 minutes ago, Constance reported. He appears agitated, making multiple calls. None connecting to your wife, interestingly. They're keeping separate for now. Vanessa believes I suspect nothing, so she's maintaining normal routines. Mr. Mercer, Constance hesitated. Given what you shared about the Wellington Tower threat, are you certain about this approach? Completely. Doug's voice held no doubt. Leo's bluffing. Even if he weren't, I've had structural engineers re-examine Wellington Tower twice in the past decade during renovations. The building is sound. And Mrs. Mercer? Will she attempt similar leverage? Doug thought of Noah, safely distant at Lake Arrowhead. She might, but I've removed her primary leverage point. At 11:30, Doug arrived at Meridian's headquarters, dressed impeccably in a suit that communicated authority and contained purpose. Employees noticed the change immediately. The relaxed demeanor replaced by steely resolve, the friendly greetings shortened to efficient nods. This wasn't Doug, the collaborative partner. This was Douglas Mercer, founding architect, majority shareholder. In the boardroom, the tension was palpable. For board members already seated, Maurice Palmer, standing nervously by the presentation screen, documents stacked precisely before each chair. Leo paced by the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Doug, Leo exclaimed with forced joviality. I was just trying to reach you. Perhaps we could speak privately before. Take your seat, Leo, Doug interrupted calmly. The meeting is about to begin. Leo's facade cracked slightly. Doug, seriously, we should. Is there a problem, gentlemen? Valerie Gersten asked, entering with regal poise. As Meridian's newest major client and temporary board observer, her presence carried significant weight. No problem, Doug assured her, gesturing to the chair beside his. Just eager to begin. As the meeting officially commenced, Doug noted Leo's increasing agitation, the constant checking of his phone, the beads of sweat forming at his temples. Whatever contingency he and Vanessa had planned was clearly not materializing. Before we address the official agenda, Doug began, I'd like to introduce an emergency item requiring immediate board attention. Leo stiffened, fingers clenching around his armrest. Maurice, Doug continued, please distribute the documents Mr. Green has prepared. Walter Green, who had been seated unobtrusively in the corner, now moved forward, placing sealed envelopes before each board member. What is this? Leo demanded, not touching his envelope. Financial disclosure, Doug replied evenly. Maurice has completed his audit. The room fell silent as each member reviewed the contents. Bank statements, transfer records, falsified invoices, all meticulously documented and annotated. Prescott Wilson, the most senior board member, removed his reading glasses. Mr. Walsh, these allegations are extremely serious. Embezzlement, misappropriation of corporate funds, tax fraud. This is absurd, Leo sputtered, finally opening his envelope. As he scanned the contents, his complexion shifted from flushed to ashen. These records they've been, Doug is framing me. The evidence was compiled by our CFO and verified by independent forensic accountants. Walter interjected smoothly. I assure you, it will withstand scrutiny. You orchestrated this, Leo accused Doug. Because of Vanessa. This is personal vendetta disguised as corporate governance. The mention of Vanessa caused ripples of uncomfortable awareness among the board members, who exchanged glances. My personal circumstances are irrelevant to these proceedings, Doug stated. The financial misconduct stands on its own merits. Bullshit. Leo surged to his feet. Tell them, Doug. Tell them this is because I've been sleeping with your wife. A collective intake of breath filled the room. Valerie Gersten's eyebrows rose appreciatively at the unexpected drama. Doug remained impassive. Is that an admission to the financial allegations, Leo? Or merely an admission to poor judgment in your personal affairs? Leo glared at him, then surveyed the room, recognizing the shifting sentiment. You need me, he declared desperately. The Gersten contract, that was my relationship, my negotiation. Actually, Valerie interrupted, my relationship is with Meridian Construction, not individuals. And frankly, Mr. Walsh, I find these revelations disturbing. The Gersten Foundation values integrity above all else. Leo's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it, then paled further. I need to take this. The meeting is in session, Prescott objected. It's an emergency, Leo insisted, already moving toward the door. As Leo stepped into the hallway, Doug nodded imperceptibly to Walter, who activated his laptop, connecting it to the boardroom's presentation screen. A video feed appeared. The lobby of Meridian headquarters, where Vanessa Mercer stood arguing vehemently with security personnel. What is this? Prescott demanded. Context, Doug replied simply. Through the lobby cameras, they watched as Vanessa's composure crumbled, her gestures becoming increasingly frantic. Security firmly but respectfully prevented her from accessing the elevators. In the background, Rebecca stood watching, her expression a mixture of sadness and resolution. Leo reappeared, his face contorted with panic. You've frozen the accounts, he accused Doug. All of them. Personal, joint, everything. As a precautionary measure, given the financial improprieties, Walter confirmed. You can't do this, Leo hissed. The Wellington Tower. Remember? One phone call. Make it, Doug challenged, sliding his own phone across the table. Call the building department. Tell them about the modifications I corrected 15 years ago. The ones documented in these folders. He tapped a stack of blue binders at his elbow. Leo stared at the binders in confusion. Complete structural assessments, Doug explained. Conducted independently during renovations in 2015 and 2022. Wellington Tower exceeds current safety standards by 23%. Understanding dawned in Leo's eyes. You knew, all along, you knew I would try to use this. I knew someone might, eventually. I believe in being prepared. On screen, Vanessa had progressed from argument to tears, sinking onto a lobby bench as Rebecca comforted her. Leo followed Doug's gaze to the monitor. She didn't know, he said quietly, about the embezzlement. That was all me. Perhaps, Doug conceded, but she knew about betraying our marriage, destroying our family, using me as her meal ticket while planning your future together. The board members shifted uncomfortably, caught in the crossfire of personal drama superimposed over corporate malfeasance. I think, Prescott said firmly, we have sufficient information to proceed with a vote on the morality clause invocation and the criminal referral. Criminal? Leo blanched. Doug, you can't. Think about Noah. Think about what this will do to him. I have thought about Noah, Doug replied, his composure finally showing cracks. Every second since my son asked me why his mother calls me her meal ticket when I'm not around. Every moment since I discovered my oldest friend and business partner was sleeping with my wife in our home, where my son could have walked in at any time. The revelation silenced even Leo. The vote, Prescott prompted, breaking the tense standoff. The results were unanimous. Leo Walsh was removed from Meridian Construction, effective immediately. All financial ties severed. Legal proceedings authorized. As security arrived to escort Leo from the premises, a contingency Doug had arranged with careful precision, Leo made a final, desperate appeal. Doug, please. We can work this out. 15 years of friendship. That has to count for something. Doug regarded him impassively. It counted for everything, Leo. That's why this hurts so much. As Leo was led away, Vanessa appeared in the boardroom doorway, having somehow evaded lobby security. Her mascara streaked down her flushed cheeks, her perfect composure shattered. What have you done? She demanded, advancing on Doug. Every account, frozen. Credit cards declined. I was humiliated at Neiman Marcus. Doug turned to the board members. If you'll excuse us, I believe this portion is private. The room cleared quickly, even Walter departing with a supportive nod to Doug. Only Rebecca remained, positioning herself near the door, present but unobtrusive. You know, Doug said simply once they were relatively alone. Vanessa's expression shifted from outrage to calculation. Know what? Everything, Vanessa. The affair. The plans. The meal ticket comments. She paled but rallied quickly. You're overreacting to... Stop. Doug's voice held such authority that Vanessa actually flinched. Noah heard you. Our son heard you call me your meal ticket on the phone with Leo. That's how this all began. Genuine shock registered on Vanessa's face. Noah, she whispered, but we were always so careful. Evidently not. Just as you weren't careful about the messages I found on your phone, or the Phoenix trips Constance documented in Santa Barbara, or the plans you and Leo made in our bed, in our home, when you thought I was in Seattle. Vanessa's eyes darted to Rebecca, betrayal dawning. You helped him, she accused her sister. Your own blood. I helped Noah, Rebecca corrected quietly. And Doug, yes, because neither of them deserved what you and Leo were doing. Vanessa's face hardened into the cold, calculating expression Doug now recognized as her true self emerging. Fine. You know, so what happens now? You think you've won? That you can just discard me with nothing. The prenuptial agreement is contestable, Vanessa interjected, especially given your financial success exceeding projections. Any decent divorce attorney will secure me half of everything, Doug. Half of Meridian. Half of everything you've built. You're welcome to try, Doug replied calmly. But you should know that Walter has already filed for divorce on grounds of adultery with substantial evidence. The prenup has a morality clause similar to Meridian's partnership agreement. In your financial activities with Leo, transferring joint funds to accounts in your name only constitute breach of fiduciary responsibility in our marriage. Vanessa blanched. You can't prove. I have documented everything, Vanessa. Every transfer, every message, every hotel room. This is about punishment, she realized. You're trying to leave me with nothing. No, Doug corrected. This is about consequences. You chose to betray our family, to mock our marriage, to plan your exit using my resources, my trust, my love for you. Love. Vanessa laughed bitterly. When was the last time you showed me real love, Doug? When was the last time I wasn't just an accessory to your success story? The beautiful wife of the brilliant architect. You never gave me the chance to be anything else, Doug said quietly. You were already gone before I ever knew we were in trouble. For a moment, something like regret flickered across Vanessa's face. Then her expression hardened again. Where's Noah? Safe. Away from all this. He's my son. Vanessa's voice rose, her control slipping. You can't keep him from me. I'm not keeping him from you, Doug replied. I'm keeping him from the fallout of your choices. When things settle, we'll establish appropriate custody arrangements. I'll fight you, Vanessa vowed. For everything. Every penny. And especially for Noah. That's your right. Doug sighed, suddenly looking exhausted. But before you declare total war, you might want to consider what Noah will see when he's older. What kind of mother you want him to remember. The words struck home. Vanessa's shoulders slumped slightly, the first genuine emotion beyond rage or calculation showing through her carefully constructed facade. This isn't over, she said, but the threat lacked conviction. No, Doug agreed. But the worst part is, as Vanessa gathered herself to leave, Rebecca stepped forward. You can stay with me, she offered, until you figure things out. Vanessa regarded her sister with a mixture of resentment and reluctant gratitude. "Why would you help me now?" "Because you're still my sister," Rebecca replied simply, "and Noah's mother." Doug watched them depart, feeling hollow despite his strategic victory. The company was secure. Leo neutralized. Vanessa contained. Yet the cost was immeasurable. Trust shattered. Family fractured. Innocence lost. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Noah asking when you're coming. Says he misses his dad." For the first time since this ordeal began, Doug felt tears prick at his eyes. "Tell him tomorrow," he replied. "Tell him I miss him too. More than anything." Alone in the boardroom, surrounded by the evidence of betrayal and the aftermath of confrontation, Doug finally allowed himself to feel the full weight of what had happened and what still lay ahead. The meal ticket had closed, indeed, but the real cost was yet to be tallied. Chapter 9. Reconstruction. 2 months later, Lake Arrowhead sparkled in the late afternoon sun, its surface rippled by the gentle wake of passing boats. From the deck of his childhood home, now renovated and expanded, Doug watched Noah paddle a kayak along the shoreline, his son's determined expression visible even from a distance. "He's getting good," Eleanor Mercer observed, settling into the chair beside her youngest son. At 72, she remained striking, silver hair cropped short, posture military straight, eyes sharp as ever. "Been practicing every day," Doug replied, smiling as Noah successfully navigated around a partially submerged log. "Says he wants to enter the junior regatta next summer." Eleanor studied her son's profile. "And how are you doing?" "Really?" Doug considered the question, watching a flock of geese traverse the cloudless sky. "Better," he finally said. "Some days are harder than others. That's to be expected. Healing isn't linear." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of Noah's paddle slicing through water and the occasional call of circling osprey. Doug's phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Meeting when is expected. V accepted revised terms. Signing tomorrow. You sure about this?" Doug texted back. "Certain. Noah deserves stability." After the initial confrontation, the subsequent weeks had unfolded with calculated precision. Leo Walsh had accepted a plea arrangement, full financial restitution in exchange for reduced charges. The scandal had been contained, the damage to Meridian minimal given the circumstances. Vanessa had initially threatened scorched earth legal warfare, but as evidence mounted and her position weakened, practicality had prevailed. The settlement Doug offered, while nowhere near what she'd hoped for, provided sufficient resources for a dignified new start. Most importantly, the custody arrangement prioritized Noah's well-being. Shared legal custody, primary physical custody with Doug, structured visitation for Vanessa, and mandatory family counseling. Terms that reflected Doug's commitment to rebuilding rather than perpetuating destruction. "Rebecca's a remarkable woman," Eleanor commented, having glimpsed the text exchange. "Supporting you both through this. Can't be easy." Doug nodded, recalling Rebecca's unflinching loyalty throughout the crisis. "She's been essential, and something more, perhaps." Eleanor's tone remained neutral, but her eyes held knowing warmth. "Mom," Doug admonished gently, "it's been 2 months since my marriage collapsed. I'm hardly in a place to." "I'm not suggesting romance," Eleanor interrupted, "simply acknowledging connection, understanding, foundation for whatever might develop. Eventually." Before Doug could respond, Noah's excited shout drew their attention back to the lake. He had reached the far dock, his goal for the week, and was waving triumphantly. Doug stood, returning Noah's wave with equal enthusiasm. "Be right there, buddy," he called, already moving toward the winding path that led to the shore. Eleanor watched him go, noting the lightness in his step that had been absent during those first desperate weeks. They would be all right, her boys. Changed, certainly. Scarred, undoubtedly. But intact in the ways that truly mattered. At the dock, Doug helped Noah secure the kayak, listening as his son recounted every detail of his aquatic adventure. "And then I saw a huge fish, Dad. Like this big." Noah stretched his arms wide, the universal sign of fisherman's exaggeration. "Probably a bass," Doug suggested seriously. "They get pretty massive in this lake." Can we try to catch it tomorrow? Absolutely. I think Grandpa's old fishing gear is still in the boathouse. As they walked back toward the house, Noah's expression turned thoughtful. Dad, is Mom coming this weekend? Doug kept his voice carefully neutral. Yes, she'll be here Saturday morning. Remember? You're going sailing with her and having lunch at the lodge. Noah nodded, processing this information. And she's staying at the hotel, not with us. That's right. This is our home now, and Mom has her new apartment in the city. Because you're divorced. Noah pronounced the word with the careful precision of a term recently added to his vocabulary. Yes, but we're still your parents. That hasn't changed. Noah kicked at a pine cone on the path. Uncle Leo isn't coming, right? Doug suppressed the surge of anger the name still evoked. No, buddy. Uncle Leo won't be visiting anymore. Good. Noah's vehemence was startling. I didn't like how he made Mom laugh at you when you weren't there. It wasn't nice. Doug stopped, kneeling to meet his son's gaze. Noah, I want you to understand something important. What happened between me, your mom, and Uncle Leo was grown-up stuff. Complicated grown-up stuff. But none of it, absolutely none of it, was your fault or your responsibility. Noah considered this seriously. I know. Dr. Melissa says it's not my job to fix grown-up problems. Dr. Melissa is very smart. Doug smiled, referring to Noah's therapist. And you know what? It's not your job to pick sides, either. You can love your mom and be upset about things that happened. Both are allowed. Noah seemed relieved by this permission. Sometimes I'm still really mad at her, he admitted, but then I feel bad about being mad. Those feelings are totally normal, Doug assured him, and they might change a lot for a while. That's okay, too. They resumed walking, Noah's small hand finding Doug's larger one with the unconscious trust of childhood. At the house, Eleanor had prepared lemonade and snacks on the deck, and Noah raced ahead to claim first choice of the cookies arranged on a blue willow plate. Doug paused at the edge of the property, taking in the tableau. His mother, his son, the home that had sheltered his own childhood and now offered sanctuary for Noah's. Not the life he had planned, not the family he had envisioned, but precious nonetheless. His phone buzzed again, Theo checking in as he did daily. Another text followed, Maurice Palmer with updates on Meridian's newest project. Then Walter Green confirming final settlement details. Doug responded to each, then silenced his phone. The business of reconstruction, both personal and professional, would continue tomorrow. For now, there were cookies to share, kayak adventures to recount, and the simple healing power of being present. Later that evening, after Noah was asleep, Doug sat alone on the deck, nursing a glass of whiskey and watching moonlight silver the lake surface. The ache of betrayal remained, but its sharp edges had begun to dull, less a stabbing pain now than a persistent soreness. A text illuminated his phone screen. Rebecca, checking in before bed. All good there? Noah excited about Saturday? All good, Doug confirmed. He's nervous, but looking forward to it. Thank you for helping make this possible. That's what family does, came Rebecca's reply. The real kind, anyway. Doug smiled at the subtle dig at her sister. Some rivalries never fully disappeared, even amid crisis and reconciliation. Speaking of family, he texted, Noah asked if you're coming for his birthday next month. Wouldn't miss it. Already found the perfect telescope for my favorite amateur astronomer. Doug hesitated, then added, maybe stay the weekend? Mom would love the company. So would we. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, I'd like that. Very much. Something warm unfurled in Doug's chest. Not romance, as his mother had suggested, but possibility. Connection. The recognition of solid ground amid shifting terrain. Good night, Rebecca, he texted. And thank you for everything. Good night, Doug. Keep building. Keep building. It was what he had always done, from childhood Lincoln logs to architectural marvels that transformed skylines. Now he was building something different. A new life, a reconfigured family, a future not defined by betrayal, but by resilience. The meal ticket was closed, but Douglas Mercer remained. Architect, father, survivor. And for the first time since Noah's innocent question had shattered his world, Doug felt genuine hope that what would rise from the ruins might eventually be stronger than what had fallen. He raised his glass to the moon-washed lake, to his sleeping son, to the uncertain future stretching before them. To reconstruction, he whispered and drank deeply. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.